Welcome to The Pestle, reviewing and breaking down movies to look for insights into the movie-making process. Hosted by Frank Johnson and Peter Bush. Let's get all up into some movies, y'all.
Welcome, everybody, to The Pestle. Today's show is brought to you by Oceanland. Come see the deep sea show in the shallowest tank, then swim with the dolphins at Oceanland. Welcome, everyone, to The Pestle. I am Wes.
And I am Todd.
And we are filmmakers, actors. We do all the things, writing, music. I play the spoons. And we take all of that and try to use it to better ourselves at the process of filmmaking by picking apart films and analyzing them, seeing what they're doing, what we liked, what we didn't. So in some sense, it's just a simple review, but also try to walk away a little bit more informed about movies, filmmaking in general. I like it. I've learned a lot. I would say this has made me a much better filmmaker through doing these. And I don't know what I would do now that you're across the country without doing these every week. Like it's really just a great way to hang out with my bud and talk film, which we would be doing anyway. So yeah, it's been interesting lately. We've been doing a lot of voiceover work. I became a director so that I could act more. And then I left my acting agency and I've not almost acted at all since then. So suddenly getting to do voiceover work has just been a really nice itch to scratch. How's that been for you? How do you like doing our voiceover projects?
I love it. I think, there's a lot of like red tape that I'm trying to get around and I hate that. But other than that, like actually, performing it and doing it and then getting feedback at times and doing some rereads and stuff, like it's been really fun and great. And like looking at a script and seeing it and I think I could read it in 3 different ways. Which way do I think, based on everything that's happening around it, and then making that decision and doing it it's been a lot of fun. It's been great. And working with Kara and it has been like, really great. I hope it keeps going. I want to keep doing it, do more of it,
Same. So, yeah. Voiceover is really interesting because it takes so much more energy than normal on-screen acting, depending on the film. Like if you're doing a rom-com, that's going to eat up a lot of energy. But in general, on camera, you can understate a lot. And if you take that same energy to a voiceover performance, you're not understated. You're just flat. There's nothing. And so just to get to kind of this understated or neutral territory requires a lot of energy. And you have to push your energy like 150%. Like just, it feels over the top while you're doing it. And then when you listen to playback, you're like, oh, it sounds like a normal person. And then if you get a crazy script where you have to really be like all out, now you're basically screaming into the microphone. Like it's pretty outrageous, depending on the story and the client, that you're working with. It can demand a lot out of you. I remember the first voiceover class I took, and she was driving that home to us. Our teacher, Renee Beal, who is phenomenal, great teacher, great actor. And she was like, okay, I'm going to have everyone do a read, and look, do it 2 ways. You're going to do it the way you think it should be done, and then I'm going to redirect you. And we did, right? We did a normal like, oh, hey, Johnny, whatever. And then she was like, okay, no, now go what you think is just over the top, what you think is just silly. And it's like, oh, hey, Johnny. And then suddenly, and then she would play them back to back to us in the class. And we were like, oh, crap. Yeah, when I'm performing it, it feels like I'm just like cartoony and hammered, hammering this really silly. But when I'm listening to it, it does sound kind of normal. Like, oh, this is just a regular person. And it just began to make me watch cartoons and radio ads like differently. And it's like, oh, okay. And shaping that around. And now that I'm doing it, a lot, it's just been really fun to kind of pull back on some of those old lessons and like, oh yeah, like it's a different type of acting. I have so much respect for like full-time cartoon, vocalists, where you're just like on Futurama doing 5 different characters, and they all have to feel individual characters, not just in, you know, your delivery, but, you know, the amount of energy it takes to transition into different characters. Like Rick and Morty, the same guy is playing both Rick and Morty, and they feel like 2 completely different actors. I just can't imagine. Like, that's really, really cool and hard. It's very difficult.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. And yeah, because you don't have at least, you know, for voiceover, for what we do, like we don't see, or the audience doesn't see anything, right? Like if it's an audiobook or something, they don't see anything. I don't have any visual feedback. It's all audio. So you have to put the emotion in your voice because there is no visual. So that means reading a line like, she took his hand and ran for dear life. You know, she took his hand and ran for dear life.
Yeah.
Or she took his hand and ran for, you know what I mean? Like, there is a total difference, and it's necessary, you know, in those regards.
It really is. And even just watching you just now, you did it, you know, 2 or 3 different ways, and physically you were doing different things. Like if you're listening on audio and not on YouTube, you didn't see Todd like go from just kind of this relaxed position to his shoulders tensed up and his hands got animated. And then the last take, he really started shaking and vibrating. Like all of that is really, really useful. I use it all whenever I'm doing voiceover work. I'm not just, you know, looking into my mic. I'm like pointing at things, and I'm like balling up my fist and like raising my arms. Like I'm doing all these physical animations, right, in order to help bring it out of my voice and access that energy. It's really fun, man. Acting is a million different things in a million different contexts. And it's really useful to understand what context you're acting in order to get the best performance out of you.
100%. I'm glad that you're having fun doing it, because I am too. I hope it turns into something bigger. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Nice. What with that in mind, what kind of acting are we watching today, man?
Yeah, we're watching actor on actor acting today. We're covering Already Tomorrow in Hong Kong. So if you haven't seen that, it's streaming on Amazon Video, so you can go watch that there. Amazon Prime.
For sure. We'll look at a couple things, touch on some of the cinematography, the way they're filming in public spaces. We'll also look at low budget filmmaking and other such stuff and things and stuff.
And a quick synopsis of the film. An attraction forms when a Chinese American girl visiting Hong Kong for the first time meets an American expat who shows her the way, but timing may not quite be on their side. Written and directed by Emily Ting. Cinematography by Josh Silfen, it's featuring Jamie Chung as Ruby and Bryan Greenberg as Josh.
That was amazing. Wait, I didn't know you could speak Cantonese so well.
Yeah, I told you I'd come in handy.
It's so weird watching you speak Chinese.
It's weird watching you speak English.
Whatever, that's different.
How is it different?
It's different because I grew up in the States.
Well, I spent the last 10 years of my life here.
Still weird. No, only because I don't speak any Chinese.
Yeah. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I don't speak a lick of Yiddish. My grandmother thinks that's Meshuggah.
What does that mean?
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, I should probably get going.
Yeah.
But thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Hey, I gotta be at this thing in a few hours, but I got some time to kill.
Oh, no.
You don't even know what I was gonna say.
Yeah, it's starting to sound eerily familiar.
One drink. Totally platonic.
Okay, fine. But only because you got my boyfriend a discount.
That's all it takes?
My boyfriend.
Yeah.
Really good discount.
All right, Todd. So I assume you'd never even heard of this movie. And I mean, it's just obviously, you know, low budget, very, I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to even preface anything. How'd you enjoy it? Was this fun, or was it like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing, and it works sometimes and other times, you know, yeah. How did it land for you?
So, I mean, it's really hard for me to put it because I have like conflicting feelings with it, right? I'm watching this and I'm thinking, this is obviously like, this is like an indie film, right? It feels like an indie film. I don't know any details about it, you know, which I kind of wanted to throw it back on you and say, okay, well, tell me what you know about this film, because that might impact how I feel, but I don't want to. So the way that started watching it and thought, you know, initially, okay, I know what they're doing, right? It's you know, a low budget film. They're keeping it low budget by, you know, having them just walk the streets essentially, and it's only two people and single camera probably, and you know, not a lot happens, right? It just felt like, okay, I get what they're doing, right? There were some moments I was taken out of it because I felt like there were some, I felt the acting sometimes, you know, I felt like them reading the lines, right? And that was upsetting to me because I liked it. Like I really liked the vibe. I liked the purpose of the story. I liked what was happening. I liked the reactions. I liked the moments of awkwardness when, you know, when she finds out he has a girlfriend, and there was another awkward moment when they're sitting down eating, and another couple sits next to them, right? That like super close next to them, and they kind of like argue a little bit, just have this like whole moment. So those felt really good of like silence, you know, because I was like, oh, okay, what's gonna break this? You know, it was basically before midnight, you know, or without any
sunrise,
money. Before sunrise, sorry, without any money. Yeah. Right. And with not as good acting is kind of, you know, but like if I were to make it, you know what I mean? Right. Without any money, but better, you know, because I felt at the end, I felt their pain and their anguish and their indecision. I love that it ended. Oh yeah, we did the whole spoiler alert thing. Yeah. I love how it ended without her making the decision. You know, I feel like he had already made his decision, you know, and was like, hey, you want to come with me on this? And so it was left up to her and them just sitting in the taxi. I thought that was a great way to end it, you know? Because then you as the viewer, we talk about this all the time. Don't give an answer, you know, raise the question, don't answer it. And give it to the it's on the onus of the viewer to answer that. I think she probably, you know, left her boyfriend and went with him, but who knows? It could have been different for you. I thought the whole thing overall was endearing and beautiful, and I couldn't wait to see what was coming up next, and and fun and exciting, which made the moments when I saw the acting and I saw the words on the page that much more upsetting, because, and it probably happened a good 10 or 12 times. Yeah. You know, where I was like, oh, there's a better line for that, or there had to be a better take where she delivered that better, because she's a good actress. You know, I've seen her in other stuff. And so it kind of left me thinking, was that a decision that the director made that she thought was good, or was it like, oh, we have to move on because we don't have any time here anymore, or, you know, not sure, but budgetary thing. You know?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, there's some bumps and bruises, and it's the kind of movie where I'm really getting invested, but also getting pulled out, you know, pretty frequently. Mm-hmm. I agree. And it is. And I think it's paying pretty direct homage to Before Sunrise, as well as Chungking Express, because this is set in Hong Kong, and they actually go shoot in front of the Chungking mansions that inspired the title for Chungking Express. And so there's a lot of homage being paid to both of those. Even in the story itself, they go and meet a fortune teller, you know, which also, you know, happens in Before Sunrise. And so like there's clear homage, and I agree. This is kind of what you and I would make, I think, without, you know, much of a budget, and just saying, what do we have? What can we make with what we have? And yeah, I think the bumps and bruises are from maybe not leaning enough into Before Sunrise, because one of the things that really makes that tick is that it isn't just about who they are. It's about all these bigger ideas and thoughts and ramblings. And here we kind of just sit on their stories directly. Like, we don't get a very strong sense of who they are while they're talking about who they are. Whereas if we had instead ventured into the things that they love or things that they hate, things that they think about, which we do periodically, but it's always coming back to, where are you from? How do you like it? What do you do for work? And those things are usually the least interesting things about people. And so I think where this film really succeeds for me, the best moments are when they're like ribbing each other, kind of giving each other shit, right? I'm just joshing you. And he's like, that's the last time we make that joke tonight. And she's like, I've been waiting all day for that. Those are the really great, and those are the moments when you can feel their acting really kick in. It's like, it feels very natural. And it's like, this is us as new people who've never really known each other getting to know each other. Those are when it's really clicking, as well as the conflict. Like you pointed out, the scene where she finds out that it was his girlfriend's birthday and that he has a girlfriend. Like, that whole little sequence is so good, because I'm buying it. I'm buying all of it. I'm buying his embarrassment. I'm buying her frustration, and him trying to weasel out a little bit and also trying to own it a little bit. Like, all that really works for me. Even the towards the end, oh man, they have that great moment where they're dancing and they start to drown out the background, the ambience with the music, comes over, and it's just them, and it's so good. It's this really nice moment that gets interrupted, right? They've been living in their own bubble, which was a really good use of the shallow depth of field, isolating these two characters in a city where they're surrounded by people. We feel like we're just in their world. That's really good filmmaking, really good direction. And it's really well done. And then in this moment, this awkward encounter with a friend busts them, right? And suddenly, like, what they've been doing has a spotlight on it. And to him, he's trying to make the point, like, this is all above water, right? Above board. Like, she knows about my girlfriend, and the friend does not care. She's like, say hi to Sam. He's like, okay, I will. Like, she's really laying it on thick, and it's good because that gives a lot for Jamie Chung to react against, right? And it's all the good stuff there, but I think, it's a lot of the writing could have used a little more. I think it's really well thought out. I don't think it's a lack of thinking or building your world. I think it's more of just, that's not the direction I think that would have been most satisfying for the viewers. Getting to know people is always more ethereal than, ones and zeros. And here I felt like there was a lot of ones and zeros on the table instead of just kind of the I don't know, effervescence of these two people connecting. And that's the stuff that really jibes with us, I know. But I think a lot of audiences, because I think this is still a really enjoyed film by a lot of people. And I can see why, because there's something really beautiful about two people getting to know each other against a backdrop of an interesting city. And Hong Kong, I've never been. The most I've seen of it is probably through Wong Kar-wai and Emily Ting, and I love the way she kind of flipped the cards, right? The white boy is the local, and the Chinese American is the visitor, right? That's a really fun twist, and it allows for some really fun moments. Like, they were just in that soundbite coming away from him negotiating in Cantonese, and she's like, oh my God, I don't know what just happened here. It felt really weird though. And he's like, why? And I love that he's not aggressive about it, but he's kind of on his heels a little bit, like, hey, why is that weird? I've been here for a decade, I know Cantonese. Why wouldn't I learn this language? I live here. Yeah. And so there's a lot of fun things happening. And it's all these little moments that work really well. I think there was more in it. I agree that it ends on a really fun note, because if you go past that, now you need a whole third act. And I think stopping at the end of the second act is the right way to go, because everything that would have come after that is really messy, and requires
a lot more people, a lot more dialogue. Yeah.
and a lot more story to cover because you probably need another at least 45 minutes to an hour to see, okay, they're getting the thing that they want, but is it everything that they thought it would be, right? That's a lot of story to tackle. And you also don't want to end it on like a love scene because that just feels, I don't know, weird. And it's, I don't know, maybe it could have been great, but thinking about it felt like it would have been a weird note to end on. Instead, what do you think? Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think she probably does leave her boyfriend because she's smart. We see that demonstrated throughout the film. Their first encounter, she's over here telling him, no, you should go for what you love. Go for your passion. Why wouldn't she reflect that in her own life? And then when she meets him later on, she's like really upset. She's like, Sam, your girlfriend doesn't support your dream? Like, that's messed up, right? So you can feel the intention behind her is like actually going after what you love. And as someone who's still dreaming about a career in fashion, like you can see that she hasn't let that go yet. And so, yeah, why wouldn't she just continue that self reflection in that moment of like, okay, yeah, we need to see where this can go. But I think they do it responsibly. That's my impression, is that she takes the high road. They both do. Maybe he doesn't want to, but I think she's the voice of reason. It's like, no. We're gonna do this right. Yeah, that's where I think the story goes. But I don't really buy their careers. This is the funny thing about it, because she doesn't really feel like a toy designer, right? She seems a little too upscale, which I think is reflected in the writing, right? Her backstory is that she's a fashion designer, which definitely tracks. But maybe toy designer isn't a great like fallback career. Either I think they need to flesh out that connection a bit stronger of how toy designing is a natural, path from a fashion designer, or just find another fallback. The tie-in that I think she really liked was if she's a toy designer, then she can go into this marketplace and find one of her toys. And now we can have this little interesting conversation about flattery versus theft. Because I think the way I take that is it's a reflection about her making this film, Emily Ting making this film, right? It's this acknowledgement, like a hat tip, right? Because the quote that he says is being ripped off in China, right? That's a compliment, and the film itself being this kind of homage to Chung Express and Before Sunrise obviously is kind of her version of a ripoff, if you want to call it that. I don't. I take it as inspiration, and she made her own thing. Zero whatever shame in that. Like she did her thing. I think and so I don't know, the career for her doesn't track, and the same thing with him. He doesn't feel like a finance guy to me. He seems a little too downscale. If she's too upscale, he's too downscale. Like his walk has a lot of like lower class swagger. He doesn't walk like someone who grew up with a lot of money. And maybe that wasn't part of his backstory, I guess. But as someone who wanted to work in finance and like had 2 degrees or whatever his deal was, it felt like he was coming from this upper class upbringing, and walked away from it. And that, his whole demeanor, it doesn't feel like a finance guy. I might have looked for a different career for this guy that tracks a little bit closer to Bryan Greenberg, or just had Bryan Greenberg change some of his physical acting around a little bit. Because he's got a lot of swagger, which I love Bryan Greenberg. And so definitely not mad at that. It's just, and it also might be I've watched too much of his other work and now I'm trying to imagine him as this finance guy. And I'm like, I don't know.
Not so much.
Not so much. But I mean, again, the broad strokes really work well for me here, right? Great location. Great casting. Like these actors have a lot of charm, a lot of charisma right off the screen, and together. But at times, and I think this is due to the writing, it feels like they're leaning forward in their performances a little bit instead of kind of leaning back into a comfort zone. It just feels like they're constantly like pushing the agenda of the script, instead of finding their own kind of natural flow in it. And maybe that's a time thing. Maybe they just didn't have a lot of time and with the script and with rehearsals to kind of flesh out these moments. It's hard to change that stuff on the fly. You really need the right cast, and maybe they're just not the right cast to completely overhaul the dialogue on the fly. I don't know what their strong suits are. I've obviously never worked with either of them. I know they're talented actors, but there's different types and styles of acting. And some people are better at it than others. I have no idea. That's all behind the scenes stuff, but still great cast. I love the little twist of the birthday being his girlfriend's. I thought that's a really smart thing. And I love the dynamic that she's encouraging him to pursue his dream. In the same way that he's kind of pushing her around in Hong Kong. That's a really fun, inverse of things you normally see. I think cinematography wise, they shot this on a Canon C500, which is notable because they got that for free through some Canon filmmaking award that she won. So that was like a really nice free aspect of making this film. A lot of shots, and going back to free, a lot of shots look like they're just using available light. This is the way I like to shoot. And they did a great job with it. I mean, the places where it's soft, it felt like they took advantage of the softness. Places where it wasn't, it felt like they were Hollywooding lights. Like there's a lot of these tracking shots from the front, and they're perfectly lit, very nice, soft light on both of them. And they're walking down the street. Now, I'm not aware of any like lights naturally in the city that are like on escalators or something. And so they clearly had someone behind the camera Hollywooding, which is what you call when you handhold something. And you just grab it and someone moves it around or moves with the camera. It's called Hollywooding. And so I'm thinking maybe they had like some lanterns on a boom pole that was able to give them a nice soft light. Smart. A lot of the shots we track mostly from the front as they're walking and having this conversation. And then we seem to finish a scene from behind. We kind of watch them walk away. Then we cut to a new location and do it again. Like they do this a lot, and it's good. It's smart. It's very efficient because the locations in this movie are so good. What a great use of Hong Kong. Like I don't know how it felt to film it, but to me, looking at it, it felt like you couldn't point the camera in a wrong direction.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Right? Like, and then it looks like she picked really smart locations because the skyline is often in the background. So, hey, we want to see the city in a lot of these shots. It doesn't matter where they're walking. We don't need to match that. We just need to have interesting places to walk and interesting places to see the skyline. And so we're going to walk down this street, and then we're going to move across the ocean or wherever, across the bridge, and we're going to have the skyline in the background. And now we have all this beautiful bokeh because Hong Kong is apparently lit up like a freaking Greg Fraser film. And it's just gorgeous. Like, yeah, we're going to win every which way. So really great job. But they take advantage of all the local pieces, right? The marketplace, the elevators, the ferry, which, by the way, filming on a ferry is so hard because there's so much ambient noise, and it looks like this was all practical on set dialogue. I didn't sense any ADR whatsoever.
Me either.
Really bold, and I love that they did that. It's encouraging for me because I like filming that way, and I hate ADR, and so this was really, really encouraging. And so I don't know if either they cut the ferry off, like were they just sitting? It felt like it was moving, but that could also have been the traffic around them creating this sense of motion. But if it was on, capturing that audio, brutal, super brutal. I know I read a couple snippets. I was trying to find out what the budget was on this thing, and she wouldn't release it. But she said it was under $1 million. I would guess probably around $300K if I was going to ballpark this thing. Because she also had Jamie and Bryan both as executive producers. And so getting that EP credit, I'm thinking that was part of their reward. Maybe it's some back end promise as well as some payment, maybe scale rate. And then, hey, just come on board. This is a fun film for y'all to own it, like to do something y'all don't get to do, and shape this project in ways that you get to shape it. Really smart.
I did notice that their timing for their oneers was really, really good. You know, they'd be walking on the street, they'd have to hit this mark by the end of their delivery of their scene, because then they need to take a right or a left, and then the scene ends or something like that. And so they do a lot of that, like multiple times, so there had to be a ton of blocking throughout the planning of this film, and it was done really, really well.
Really well. Yeah. And I wonder what that writing process was like too. If she posted up in the city and was like, okay, I need to write a scene that can last about 45 seconds, or if it was just kind of backwards, like here's a scene, here's our endpoint. We're just going to walk it backwards to see where we need to start. That's probably how I would tackle it, but that doesn't mean that you start at a really interesting place either. So you might have to tailor it based on the amount of time you can get out of the best visuals that you have access to. I don't know. Really good job though. Yeah, public filming is really difficult. She talks a little bit about that. She was like, yeah, there was a lot of like drunk expats on the weekends. I guess they filmed on the weekends because she was like, they kept jumping into the frame and like saying, hi, mom, to our actor.
Oh my God.
And it was just really hard to get a clean 5-minute take that wasn't ruined because they are doing these really long oneers. And that takes a lot of patience for everyone on set. That was my hesitance when we did our film on 4th and Congress in downtown Austin. I was like, man, we're so exposed. And the last time I did this, I kept having this jackass, and I was shooting film, Super 16, and it just kept having this jackass pop up in the back of my frame, waving at the camera. And it's just like, man, don't do that. And then it looks like they kept one guy in this film. They're posted up in front of this store, and they're finishing this conversation, and this guy walks in front of them, or right behind them, and like crosses his arm and smiles at the camera. And they cut to like coverage of over the shoulder, singles. And I was like, I was really happy for the cast. It seemed like they stayed in it. I mean, throughout the entire film, they do a really good job of staying in it. And, they do a good job of cutting around everything that they don't have working in their favor. For instance, the market, or when they get to that little strip of clubs, where, she was originally trying to go in their first meetup, they said that was all, in public. They lobbed them up and they got a long lens and they said, we're going to run the scene. Y'all are just going to have to work with it. And they said they got it in one take without anyone ruining anything. And they just kind of moved on.
Awesome.
Isn't that cool?
I love that. I love that. Just do it. Just do it. And whatever happens. That's so fantastic.
So cool. This is the kind of film that I watched probably right when it was released. And I was like, same thing we're feeling now, where I was like, oh man, like it's kind of bumpy here and there, but I'm really encouraged as a filmmaker watching someone take these risks and just go for it. Like even more now, right? Like this is very much kind of where we're heading right now with where I'm at in trying to create my first feature. And I love the runtime. I love that it's not even 80 minutes. It's like 78 minutes with credits, right? I think it's like 74, maybe 75 without credits. And so I think there's something to be said for really short feature films that doesn't get the love that they deserve. And I'm glad that she felt the freedom to do that. Yeah, man, I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot to love about it. I still enjoy it. I like the vibe, like you said. I like hanging out with these characters. I think if I just had my druthers, there would just been some small differences, not even cinematography, from cinematography, just with just some of the writing, because I think these two people are really charming together on screen. Yeah, and they're good actors, good characters. I like the story beats. There's nothing to not like about this for me. And
man, Josh Silfen did a great job in so many places. Specifically, one I want to call out is on the bus. I think there's so much that happens cinematography wise on this bus. One, how do you shoot in a moving bus and not be rattled around? I mean, obviously you have like a steady cam and you can probably use that, but also on top of that, because I don't know what their budget was. So if we're talking indie wise, that's a lot of your budget right there, because that is not cheap to get something good enough to be able to be pretty stable on a moving bus, right? And then, but also to have, because there's that strange couple that's sitting in front of them, right? You have to shoot in a way where we're paying attention to our actors in the back of the bus, but we're also seeing, at times the couple in the front, but it has to be framed just right to where like we can choose to notice them if we want, but not, we're really paying attention to the conversation in the back. There's reflections. You got to pay attention to the lighting in the bus itself. It looks very, very practical. It looks like, to your point, like they're just using what they've got. I'm sure on the bus, they probably have something. Maybe they usually turn the lights off or something. I don't know, but they're on. I have no idea, but they probably had the bus do something specific.
Yeah. I bet you're right. Like I imagine, because I'm watching that scene right now, actually, like at the back, they probably added an extra LED, taped it to the ceiling or something. And just to give them a little bit brighter so that the attention goes to the brightness of the screen, which is them. But if not, still really smart, easy work, and the shooting on a Canon C500 probably gives you a little extra latitude of exposure,
The colors are so vibrant in this film. So vibrant. I mean, like, look at the scene right after that when they go to the market. Like, you're like, oh my God, everything explodes, but not in an oversaturated way. It's like, feels very natural, Yeah. Like how I think a lot of times, films that are like indie films are they're not colored. They're either too saturated or they're not saturated enough. It's like they go too far or they don't go far enough, right? You shoot in log, great. But then you have so much to work with. You have some directors who want to use it all and some who are afraid to use any of it. But this is like a great balance. It feels real. Like like this is how it would really look if my eyes were seeing this, in person. But in a, like beautiful, like there are some moments, like I'm watching right now, the market scene, and there are a few aspects of it that are of some of the shots that are actually blown out. It seems like the whites are almost blown out.
Oh wow!
But it doesn't bother me.
Yeah,
it's just like a lot is going on in my eyes, and I think it's important because like a lot of times, a lot of stuff is blown out in the background when they have like a shallow depth of field, and that's okay. So like. It being when they're in a booth or something and there's the aspects that are blown out in the background, it just kind of takes my eye away from it to them, right? It brings the world, even though it's wider, in tight to focus on them. Yeah. I think it's I don't know if it was intentional, but I feel that's how I feel when I watch it.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the rough things about not just shooting publicly, but shooting digitally is you're taking advantage of the available light, which I imagine was probably the case here. But in order to get a nice exposure on your actors' faces, you're going to lose some of those highlights, and digital just doesn't retain highlights quite as well, not nearly as well as film. With the exception, from what I hear, the Arri Alexa does a really exceptional job of retaining highlights. I've never shot on an Alexa, so I couldn't tell you, but from what I read from cinematographers I respect, like Darius Kanji, who's big on film, but when he does shoot digital, he goes with the Alexa. Yeah, man, I agree. It is beautiful. It feels natural. It feels lived in. I think, the saturation is a really good point. I was thinking about that on my first viewing because she's wearing that red and it just pops right off the screen. And that's, she's the symbolism of love, and he's blue, right? He's kind of cool, a little too cool for school. And so they did some really nice stuff with the color for sure. Yeah, I don't know, man. I if it were me, I'd be really happy I made this film exactly the way it is. Like, I would be really proud of this for sure.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know. Final thoughts.
This is the kind of film that I think that anybody could make that's determined, right? Like if you're able, anybody could write this, anybody could find a camera, even an iPhone nowadays, and make some kind of version of something like this, because it's the story, right? And so it's taken a little bit from other stories, but there's wrinkles in it. You know, they have girlfriends and boyfriends, and that makes this a little unrequited. And then they have, or not unrequited, but star-crossed. And then they have this whole dynamic of he's lives there and she doesn't, but she's Chinese and he's American, and like you mentioned earlier. And so there's all these different wrinkles. And so if you take an idea that you really like and you just add a couple of large scale wrinkles to it, all of a sudden it's a whole different ball game. And I think that Emily Ting did an amazing job at doing that. And with what she had, did an incredible job of telling a story that I think really sticks with you. And, you know, while I agree there are some moments that I would have chose different performances, I think it's like just all in the performance, but the actual creation of it was done so well that it's almost, not quite for me, but almost worth overlooking those moments, because I just want to experience those feelings that happen. Like there's probably as many times as I'm taken out of it, there's probably that many moments where I'm like, oh man, that was an amazing moment, you know, if not more. And so those moments they feel so good that I kind of want to just put those other moments that take me out of it aside to experience it again. And I want to watch it again. I'm probably going to watch it again. So wonderful experience.
Yeah, for sure. I would be down for a sequel. I think this is the kind of movie that lends itself really well to following up and seeing where are these characters now. Like you've already kind of started down the Before Sunrise road. Why not chase the dragon? You know, like I feel like it's all house money, because this is such an understated film that you can't really go wrong no matter where you go. And so what if they didn't get it together, right? What if they tried to plow through and we pick up, I mean, it's been 7 years, but what if you pick up 3 years later? Like, why not? Now it's a 2017 film or something. Like there's a lot of places you could go with this. I enjoy it. I wouldn't mind at all hanging out with these characters again, even in Hong Kong again. There's probably another fun way to approach that. What if you're not exploring the city as much? What if you're exploring the housing, you know, instead? We're hanging out in people's parties and people's living rooms. What's that look like in Hong Kong? Like we know what that looks like in America. Is it different there? You know, what does a party look like? I don't know. I think there's still room to explore that location. But even if not, we could go back to New York and hear the LA versus New York, you know, feud continue down. I don't know. I'm all about it. I would be okay with that. I like them on screen together, and this is fun. And I think probably in the last 7-8 years, she's grown as a writer director, and she'd probably love to revisit and show us what she's learned in the interim. I would certainly be willing to learn from her for sure, because I'd be really again I'd be happy if I made this for sure.
Yeah, agreed.
Nice. Awesome. What are you going to recommend this week?
Oh man, earlier this week I just saw that Netflix released All Quiet on the Western Front, and watched that, and I'm going to recommend that. I don't know what is going on with Netflix, but my God, the shit they're making it's right up there with stuff I would go watch in the theater any day. I don't know how can you make a movie like this and just release it, like put it out there on Netflix? I just don't get it. I don't think I'm going to get it. Maybe that's the pre-pandemic in me. I don't know, but I would have loved to have watched this on a big screen. It's so well done. The performances are well done. I mean, it's, really good war movies. They're really hard to make, but they're also, if you have the ability to make them, they're hard to mess up. I feel like they're just so visceral, and this is no exception. I just really adored it. I thought it was amazingly shot, amazingly acted, amazingly written, and fan freaking tastic. So nice. Netflix, All Quiet on the Western Front.
I'll be checking that out. I am going to recommend a film. It's called Paris Je t'aime. I probably am mispronouncing that. Apologies to anyone who speaks French. My Cantonese is better than my French. And so this is a film that's just a collection of short films, all centered around Paris. And it's all different directors. And so you'll have just I forget who's all directing in here, but there's like a weird little short film in there with Elijah Wood. That's so interesting. There's a lot of directors you'll know, and they all just got tasked with, hey, make a 5 to 10 minute short film, whatever you want, just make it in Paris. And so you get a lot of this kind of action of exploring a city and meeting characters, and it's just lovely. I think it's really fantastic. I saw it in theaters a long time ago and just adored it for sure. So Paris, Je t'aime. They made another one called New York, I Love You, which whatever, it was fine. Paris was the best though. And yeah, stay tuned for next week. I'm going to see if we can get Scotty on the show, friend of the show, Scott Garrett Graham, and the three of us will tackle Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Hopefully this will be a fun holiday episode. And I'm going to also see if I can talk us all into having a drink of some kind. And this will be courtesy of Uva, who gave us a really fancy donation. Much appreciated friend. And hopefully we'll honor that through a drink of some kind. We'll see. It depends on what time of day we end up recording.
It's
that
10 o'clock in the morning when I'm recording. So
it might be
non-alcoholic.
Yeah. But I will be popping like a bottle of bourbon. I don't care if it is 10 a.m.
There you go. It's noon where you are.
That's right. Awesome. So stay tuned for that. And if you're enjoying the show, drop us a review, subscribe, leave us a note. If there's something you want us to talk about, things you like to hear about, whatever. We're open to it all. Even if we don't cover it all, we'll do our best. And if you want to leave a note on this episode in particular, you can do that at thepestlepodcast.com/already tomorrow in Hong Kong.
And today's quote of the day is from Werner Herzog. I despise formal restaurants. I find all of that formality to be very base and vile. I would much rather eat potato chips on the sidewalk. I mean, I would too.
I just like the idea that I'm taking him so literally that he's literally just dumping potato chips onto the sidewalk and eating them off of it.
Oh my God, that is literal. I was picturing him just standing on a sidewalk eating them out of a bag, but you're talking about like literally off the sidewalk. Wow, interesting. So why'd you pull this?
I don't know. It was their conversation while eating that seafood restaurant.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I love this stuff. My girlfriend doesn't like it as much. She likes, really nice places where they have ceilings and air conditioning. And he's being mildly facetious, but I get what he means, right? Like, there's a lot of people who love upscale dining. And I thought that was just an interesting choice. For one, writing a low budget film, it's so much easier to get like a taco stand than it is to go get, whatever, even Five Guys and Fries is, expensive for a film. Even though it's a fast food joint, you're probably not going to get access to that thing for free. And so, yeah, just as a approach to filmmaking, I just really respect using what you have and maximizing it. And she looked around Hong Kong and said, what do I have access to? I have all these free streets. Yeah, it's going to cause some pain because people are going to ruin some shots, and that's okay. We're going to push through it because you know what? I'm a filmmaker and I'm going to make a effing movie that I like. Smart. Why not shoot in a, fun little restaurant? It's so much more character than finding some really nice restaurant. And I love building that not just into the set and into the story, but also into the characters. Like that became a point of pride for him. Like, yeah, this is stuff that I love. This is the best seafood. You're welcome. And it just was a really great way to combine all the things that you have at your disposal between location and story and writing. Like just really, really smart. Yeah. And I agree. Cool. I'd prefer like little dingy food trucks compared to, maybe I just haven't eaten at enough nice restaurants.
Nah.
But you have though, right?
Yeah, it's not worth it. It's good, sure, but it's just as good from a food truck. Really. Nice. The incremental improvement is modest compared to the costs and the time. And yeah, no, I agree.
Nice.
Yeah. Awesome. Well done. Well, this is a lot of fun. Thank you for recommending it. I really enjoyed it. I'm definitely going to go watch it again. And like Wes said, please review us, subscribe, give us comments. All of that stuff really helps out. It lets us know that you like what we're doing. And give us a suggestion if there's a film that you'd like to see us cover or talk about. We'd love to hear from you. Until next week, I am Todd.
I am Wes.
Go watch some movies.
Todd?
Wes, what are you doing here?
Whoa!